In Guatemala, the transition process remains on hold. The outgoing government of President Yamatei has not yet responded to the president-elect's proposal. In Palestine, authorities welcomed the visit of the Saudi ambassador and consul of Jerusalem, Nayef al-Sudairi, to the occupied territories. And in Niger, the ruling military junta stated that the timetable for the withdrawal of French troops must be set within a negotiated framework. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Guatemala's transition process remains on hold. The government of President Alejandro Yamatei has not yet responded to the president-elect's proposal. Bernardo Arevalo suspended the transition process launched under the supervision of Luis Almagro, Secretary General of the Organization of American States. After advancing a few steps, the Special Prosecutor's Office Against Impunity, headed by Prosecutor Rafael Curruchiche, raided the headquarters and materials of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal, and as a result, Arevalo proposed a new methodology for the transition that the administration of President Yamatei is still reviewing, despite his promise to make the process quick and transparent. On Monday, the Peace Commission of the Congress of Colombia, headed by Senators Iván Cepeda and Omar Restrepo, arrived in the Department of Antioquia to investigate serious cases reported in the area. The community of Cáceres, where they met with the parliamentarians, has been denouncing serious acts perpetrated by elements of the Gulf Clan. Since August 23rd, the Jesus Maria Valle Human Rights Corporation has been recording massacres and executions of social leaders by men who wear the insignia of the Gaitanistas self-defense groups or the Gulf Clan. In this sense, they highlighted the massacre of 6 people in the village of San Pablo in the municipality of Cáceres. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro reiterated his call for dialogue to resolve the territorial dispute over Guyana during a new edition of his program with Maduro Más. The head of state called to resume the dialogue regarding that area in claim attached to the Geneva Agreement signed by Venezuela and Guyana in 1966. In this context, he ratified his counterpart of Guyana, Irfan Ali, its readiness to engage in peace negotiations in order to cease threats and diplomatic illegalities over the territory. Finally, the Venezuelan president announced a campaign of international denunciation of plans of aggressions as well as vindicating the rights of the country over the territory of Venezuela.
External factors have tried to get their hand in and are getting their hand in. Recently, Venezuela energetically protested the announcement of the government of Guyana to hand over the oil blocks in the sea that belong to Venezuela or that are in controversy and not delimited to ExxonMobil and other transnational companies. We protest in accordance with the international law that we are entitled to according to the 1966 Geneva Agreement signed by the parties. And we have also started an international compliance that we will not stop. I have given orders to the Executive Vice President, to the Foreign Minister Iván Gil, and to the entire diplomatic team of Venezuela to immediately present before the governments of the Caribbean, Latin America, and the world explicit documentation of the historical rights of Venezuela and the world over the Guyana Essequiba, the aggression plans of ExxonMobil and the Southern Command, the threats that exist over Venezuela.
Likewise, the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro called for dialogue with Guyana to negotiate an end to illegalities.
There is only one solution here, and that is to resume face-to-face dialogue within the framework of the Geneva Agreement, which is why I ratified to the President of Guyana that I, Nicolás Maduro Moros, President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, on behalf of our people, I'm ready to meet you very soon, wherever we choose in the Caribbean, to talk within the framework of the Geneva Agreement, to resume the peace negotiations and to seize these threats and these illegalities, and to find a solution through dialogue and diplomacy.
Ecuador's Constitutional Court has set up the public hearing to decide the actions to be taken against the members of the Council for Citizen Participation and Social Control. The plenary session will follow over the Constitutional Court's ruling 219, which protects the actions of the Transitory Council for Citizen Participation headed by Julio César Trujillo. On the other hand, the members of the current council will report on the process carried out by the institution against the State Attorney General, Diana Salazar. Brazilian President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva said on Monday that Vietnam has expressed interest in a trade deal with Mercosur, bloc of Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay, adding he will bring the topic up for discussion with those countries. Lula, who is currently chairing the group, said he wants to bring Mercosur members closer to Asian countries and highlight there is room for trade with Vietnam to grow, as he welcomed Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh in Brasilia. The move comes as the Mercosur bloc tries to finalize a long-awaited trade deal with the European Union, which the leftist leader has been pushing to be concluded by the end of this year. Mercosur and the EU reached an agreement in 2019 after 2 decades of negotiations, but it has been on hold due to environmental concerns.
We also discussed Vietnam's interest in concluding a trade agreement with Mercosur. I'm going to raise the issue with our Mercosur partners, taking advantage of the Brazilian presidency. I'm sure it's possible to move forward. It's in our interest to bring Mercosur closer to Asia. The countries of Southeast Asia account for almost 6.5% of the world's GDP in purchasing power parity. Brazilian exports to all Southeast Asian countries already amount to half of what we export to the European Union.
The government of Argentina signed agreements with the governors of the provinces of the Norte Grande to generate some 10,000 new jobs in renewable energy projects. The Secretary of Energy, Flavia Rollón, stated that with the new agreements signed with the governors, progress is being made in the installation of 2,500 megawatts of renewable energies that will generate 10,000 new jobs, in addition to local labor. The official emphasized that these agreements arise as a consequence of the management carried out by the Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, and that they will allow each province to amplify its own productive potential. According to Rollón, Massa's modern perspective seeks to give way to new technologies to allow a further development and to abandon the centralized model of government. Let's take now a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Russia has called on the United States to conduct a thorough investigation into the attack on the Cuban embassy in Washington on Sunday night. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said on Tuesday that Moscow condemned the attack on the Cuban diplomatic headquarters. She stressed the need for the perpetrators to be brought to justice so that such a serious act does not go unpunished. The spokeswoman hoped that the U.S. authorities would carry out a swift and thorough investigation. She recalled that this was not the first crime committed against the Cuban diplomatic mission in Washington. She also demanded that the receiving party guarantees the security of foreign diplomatic missions on its territory in accordance with international obligations. Social movements gathered in front of the Cuban diplomatic mission in Washington, the United States, to denounce the terrorist attack that took place on the afternoon of September 24th. Several organizations gathered at the Cuban embassy after the terrorist attacks last Sunday. The foreign minister of Venezuela and the representative of Mexico also sent a statement expressing their solidarity with the island of Cuba and condemning the attack. Finally, the Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez said that there had been no casualties after the attack and that the aggression was being investigated.
We're here today at the Cuban Embassy in support of the Cuban people. There was an attack on the embassy last night. My name is Brianna. I'm with the Diaspora Palante Collective, a group of Boricuas in the diaspora, fighting for the liberation of Puerto Rico, but we also understand that Cuban people and Puerto Rican people have a history of solidarity and support, and we want to maintain that and fight for both of our countries' liberation and sovereignty.
In this context, the member states of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, ALBA-TCP, issued a statement condemning the terrorist attack against the diplomatic mission of the Republic of Cuba in the United States. The attack took place on September 24, 2023. The statement urges compliance with international law and international conventions and supports the measures taken by the government of Cuba in response to this aggression. Furthermore, it stressed that Cuba should not be included in the list of countries that allegedly sponsor international terrorism when it is the victim of these attacks. Democratic U.S. Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey on Monday defied federal corruption allegations and the erosion of Democratic support in his home state by claiming that the cash found in his home came from his savings accounts and was intended for emergencies. Before the press and without answering questions, Menendez said he believed he would be exonerated and that prosecutors sometimes get it wrong. The Democratic senator did not address whether he will run for re-election next year. He and his wife, Nadine Menendez, are accused of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, gold, and a luxury car from 3 New Jersey businessmen for several corrupt acts. According to the indictment, Menendez used his influence to meddle in 3 criminal cases, lobbied U.S. agricultural regulators to protect a partner's business interests, and used his position as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee to influence U.S. policy on Egypt.
I recognize this will be the biggest fight yet, but as I have stated throughout this whole process, I firmly believe that when all the facts are presented, not only will I be exonerated, but I still will be the New Jersey's senior senator.
The Greek parliament approved the labor reform promoted by the conservative government of Kyriakos Mitsotakis, which imposes, among other measures, working hours of up to 13 hours. After a 24-hour general strike and several mobilizations in the country, the parliament approved a reform that extends the work week to 6 days and up to 13 hours a day, and will also allow companies to vary the working hours to adapt them to the company's production needs. The approval of this reform also stipulates that an employee can be dismissed in the first year of employment without prior notice and any remuneration. Finally, this new rule allows workers to voluntarily hold a second job for a maximum of 5 hours a day, alongside their main activity of 8 hours a day, which would add up to 13 hours. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found a short break? Don't go away. Welcome back from the South. The government and the Organization for the Liberation of Palestine on Tuesday welcomed the visit of the Saudi ambassador and consul of Jerusalem, Nayef al-Sudairi, to the occupied territories. The visit is considered a historic milestone for the development of fraternal relations between the two countries and the opening of joint cooperation in all fields. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry appreciated the support of Saudi Arabia under the leadership of the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin. This is the first time a senior Saudi official visited the occupied Palestinian territories since the appointment of al-Sudairi as non-resident ambassador to Palestine. The Libyan Attorney General's office announced Monday that the arrest of 8 officials and former officials as part of the investigation into the collapse of the Wadi Derna and Abu Mansur dams following torrential rains earlier this month. Both dams collapsed on September 11th amid the passage of Storm Daniel, flooding a quarter of the city of Derna, destroying entire neighborhoods and sweeping thousands of people into the sea. The death toll ranges from more than 4,000 to more than 11,000, according to various government officials and aid agencies, while numerous lifeless bodies remain under rubble or missing in Mediterranean waters. A statement from the Attorney General's office posted on Facebook explains that 7 officials and former officials of the Water Resources Authority and the Dams Management Authority were questioned on Sunday, accused of mismanagement and negligence that contributed to the collapse of the dams. Emergency teams in Libya recovered 23 more bodies in Derna as a result of the storm that occurred last September 11th.
Regarding today, the number of bodies that have been recovered and buried is 23 bodies in the city of Derna, bringing the total number to 3,868 documented cases with the Ministry of Health.
In turn, the spokesman for the Libyan government's Committee for Emergency informed that 2 teams were set up to speed up the identification process.
2 teams has been formed to speed up documented missing individuals. The first team will continue to receive bodies recovered from the sea or other retrieval location, and they will take the necessary measures for documentation and registration. This includes collecting samples as required following the procedures of the public prosecution. The second team will focus on retrieving bodies that were buried randomly at the beginning of the crisis, collecting samples, documenting them, and adding them to the list of missing individuals.
In South Africa, authorities say that heavy rains caused damage in the southern region of Western Cape. Local government representative for Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, Anton Bredel, reported that 1 person was swept away as a result of floodwaters overflowing. The country's meteorological service issued a level 9 warning announcing that the impact of the inclement weather was expected to be severe. From a material standpoint, officials are currently most concerned about major road closures, which are expected to last for at least the next 12 hours. Disaster management teams are also searching for 3 people reported missing in the different areas affected by the rains. Niger's National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland has reminded the French government that the timetable for the withdrawal of its troops must be set within a negotiated framework. They say this after realizing that President Emmanuel Macron would finally authorize the departure of their troops. The transitional Junta currently governing Niger had repeatedly called for the withdrawal, stressing that this is a historic moment and recognizing that the decision of the Elysee represents a new stage in the country's sovereignty. They informed France that they were taking note of the decision, hoping that the declaration would lead to official acts and a process of common agreement. Mali's ruling junta announced a delay to a presidential election scheduled for February that was aimed at returning civilian leaders to power. The junta spokesman Abdoulaye Maiga said in a press statement on Monday that the presidential election initially scheduled for a first round on Sunday, February 4, 2024, and a second round 2 weeks later will be slightly postponed due to technical reasons. The government official mentioned the adoption of a new constitution this year and a review of the electoral list as the main reasons for the change. The note also said that the new dates for the elections will be announced later. Since Mali's back-to-back putsches in 2020 and 2021, West Africa has seen a series of military coups, including Burkina Faso, Niger, and Guinea, in each case the militaries have said they were carrying out transitions before a return to the constitutional order.
The transitional government informs the public that it has decided to organize exclusively the presidential election to emerge from the transition. The other elections will certainly be the subject of another calendar, which will be established by the new authorities under the directives of the new President of the Republic. However, the dates of the presidential election initially scheduled for Sunday, February 4, 2024, the first round, and Sunday, February the 18th, 2024, the second round, possibly will be slightly postponed for technical reasons.
Egypt will hold a presidential vote on December 10th to the 12th, says Walid Hassan Hamza, chairman of Egypt's National Election Authority, with the winner said to be announced by December 18th.
The National Election Authority is honored to announce today the opening of nomination for a new 6-year-long presidential term. The vote will be held abroad on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, December 3rd to 3rd, 2023. Inside Egypt, it will take place on Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, December 10 to 12. The final results of the presidential election will be announced and published in the official newspaper no later than January the 16th. Therefore, the entire election process will conclude before January the 17th, 2024.
We have come to the end of this news briefing, and you can find these and many other stories on our website, TeleSURenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.